Hello again, and welcome to episode 3 of MusiQuest. So, today we're going to talk about how did I actually get into playing music. So, for a little bit of background on this, if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, go do that now because everything kind of meshes together as time goes by. You'll see that later, way later. But for now, we're going to talk about, okay, how did I actually get to start playing music? And this happened, to play it seriously, like more like, I really want to play music. I want to do this. This happened in high school. So when I got into high school, one of the first things I did was look at all the extracurricular activities that my school offered. And I've always been into artistic stuff. That's always been my jam. As a young kid, I used to draw a lot. Like I drew my entire life as a kid. I'm a little bit rusty in that area, so don't ask me to draw anything anymore. But I always were into like arts, and I'm a very visual person, and this is really linked to what I do for a living. So that's a different discussion. Anyway, so I get into high school and I looked at all the activities, and the one that I really liked from the list was theater. There was like a theater troupe in school, so I joined the theater troupe. I got into the production team, which is basically we were the ones building the stage, painting, doing all sorts of stuff. When you're in high school, you know, these teams have to tend to be very small. You have no budget, so you have to be very creative. I just wanted to be there doing things. Eventually, of course, I wanted to be in the play, but that would come later. So I joined that, and I did that for a full semester. I had tons of fun. I met a lot of people. I was the youngest in the troupe because everybody was like finishing high school, starting university, like all the guys that were there. I was the little chicken that joined. So very interesting times. Anyway, so I do that for a whole semester. Then the next semester comes. And I was like, well, I'm going to just, continue with the theater troupe. So I went again to check the list of all the activities. And then they had everything. Of course, there was the theater troupe. There was a bunch of like other activities. And then at the bottom, it was like a board where they had put everything. And at the bottom of the board, in a space where I think they just ran out of space in the board and just like wrote it down there, the best they could was rock band. And I was like, ooh, rock band. That sounds very interesting. So, well, I've played the melodica in piano as a kid. Maybe I could try to be a keyboards player in the rock band, So, one of the things that I've always done is that once I decide to do something, I go full on beast mode on it. So I started to buy magazines like crazy. I've always loved buying magazines, books, whatever I could get my hands on that I can read. I love reading a lot. So I started to buy all these keyboards magazines. And we're talking about a time where most of the pop music was keyboards driven. So there was enough literature for me to go around. And I started to listen to a lot of like synth-based music. So today we're going to talk about that. When it comes to synth music, I don't have it around here, but one of my cousins, she's a little bit older than me. She was really into the rave scene back then. So she made me a tape, because back then that's what we used to do. You would like grab stuff from your collection, record a bunch of stuff onto a tape, and give it to someone. That's something that we did a lot. That was the bread and butter of how you would get to know music. You would make tapes and gift them to your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friends, relatives, anybody. That's what you did. So anyway, she made this tape for me, and it was just basically like trance music, I think. And I really got into that. I was like, wow, this is so cool, the sounds. And I was amazed by the sounds that synths could make. And by the time I got into this, yes, there was a lot of analog synths, but I think it was a time where FM synthesis was starting to take off. So FM synths, I don't want to go too technical into these things because I know a lot of people here are not really technical musicians. But anyway, they have this very particular sets of sounds they can reproduce, and they were very different from analog synths. So I really liked what they were capable of doing. And I started to get a lot into that. So to give you some examples, one of the first synth-based artists, if you want to put it that way, that I listened to came again from my dad's music collection. And it was Jean-Michel Jarre. And there's specifically this album. This, you have to listen to it. It's a full-on trip to cosmic electronic music. It's it's Oxygen. Maybe you didn't get it. And the whole album is just like non-stop music, very atmospheric. And I used to, obviously I copied my dad's record onto a tape, and I used to take it to my bedroom. Well, I had my tape with me, so I would just put it on I had this little tape radio thing on my nightstand. I would put the tape on it, play it, and fall asleep on it. That I really loved this record that much. It was my go-to for let's go to bed and sleep. So this is one of my launch pads into electronic music. Some of the other stuff that you would find back in the day was, for example, stuff like Kitaro, another big electronic music artist. Obviously, this was huge back then. I don't know if this qualifies as electronic music strictly, but let's say it's got the beats, and it was Enigma. This is another fundamental record from back then. This was everywhere. It was sounding everywhere. There was no way you could avoid listening to specifically this record on radio, stores, cars, anywhere. So this was big. Obviously, I'm coming back to Depeche Mode. This album, specifically Violator, is amongst the best electronic pop albums ever. But I'm gonna come back to one very rare gem. I have not seen this ever since anywhere. I would be curious. I didn't check if it's on like streaming platforms or anything. This is a little record, a tape. I have it in tape form. It's John Tesh. That's the name of the artist. And this is Tour de France. This, for me, I have no idea how much I listened to it, but this is one of my seminal electronic music artists and records of the time. I ate that like nonstop. So that's what I started to listen to, because the idea was for me to get soaked in this so that I could go and play keyboards like them. Sure. At least that's what drove me. So I was really learning all this stuff so I could go back to the rock band in my school and say, hey, I can play keyboards with you guys. However, something happened that summer before I started school, and you're gonna hear about it next week in the next episode. So stay tuned for the next MusiQuest episode, where I'll tell you how is it that I found guitar. Stay tuned. Bye.